Good morning, Tampa Bay. How are we doing today? What is going on? This is another edition of Channelside in the morning, live on the Channelside Sports Network. Of course, we always appreciate you when you tune in. Thank you for those who are already on board right now. Nice amount of you guys rolling on in. A lot to unpack today on today's show. A lot to unpack, and I guess we'll just take it right from the top and we'll talk about the Lightning here. Off season has already started. Of course, we know the NHL entry draft is in 6 days. And we also do know that going forward, we are going to we're gonna have to make some tough roster moves if we are the Tampa Bay Lightning. And it starts with right away with Ryan McDonagh. And we didn't expect if I would have told you that Ryan McDonagh would have been one of the first names listed as somebody that was going to get traded, I'd be lying. It is a tough business move, and we understand how that works. We understand the aspects of how that works, right? But it is it's kind of crazy. Ryan McDonagh has four years left on his contract. He's got a cap hit of $6.75 million, and he has a full no trade clause. That makes it a little difficult if you're Ryan McDonagh and you are not wanting to move, right? Because he holds all the cards, essentially. If you want to play hardball, and let's say you want to stay with the Lightning, and you don't want to get traded, and you can't find a potential trade partner if you're the Lightning, because he does have a pretty decent sized cap hit for the NHL. I know when we talk about, $6.75 million, especially when we're talking about football, you're like, well, that's not that bad, because typically we're looking at, bigger contracts. NBA free agency started yesterday. We're looking at $26+ million contracts for Orlando Magic players like Gary Harris and Mo Bamba, which we'll talk about later on. But yeah, we've got so many moving pieces right now inside the organization for the Tampa Bay Lightning. You want to keep Nick Paul, Andre Palat, and Jan Ruda. Those are probably your top 3 commodities that you want to make sure are on this team next year. Okay. And you really, really, like, Nick Paul was your priority. The sources say that there is a multi-year deal in the works. It should be finalized, today, tomorrow, possibly after the 4th. Who knows? But there's a multi-year deal with Nick Paul that's on the table right now, and they are looking to finalize it and keep Nick Paul in Tampa Bay long term. Derek LaLonde now is the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. Congratulations. Very well deserved. I find this interesting. Kevin Weeks, obviously great reporter from ESPN, longtime NHL network, great goalie in the NHL. NHL Insider now says that he would expect the former Detroit Red Wings head coach Jeff Bledsoe to find his way down to Tampa Bay. Which to me is interesting, because we already had like these parallels because of Steve Yzerman playing for the Red Wings and then coming to Tampa Bay and building Tampa Bay to what they are now, and then handing it over to Julian Brisbois, who's making fantastic moves going forward. Like we're not questioning the moves that Julian is making. It's something that Greg Wolf and I talked about this yesterday. If there is any franchise in all of our big 4 sports that you don't really ever have to question the motives, and you don't have to question what they're doing and why they're doing it, it's the Lightning's front office. They just seem to always make the right moves at the right time. So when you look at something like, okay, trading Ryan McDonagh, we love Ryan McDonagh in Tampa. New York felt the same way when they traded him to Tampa. New York was getting younger. Ryan McDonagh didn't quite fit that mold. And look, it honestly, and it is what it is, honestly, at the end of the day, right? It's a business. You play to win championships, and being loyal is not always going to be the best thing for you. But here's where it gets tough. Is Ryan McDonagh is older in comparison to some of the other players that are on this roster. While he was throwing the body around a lot in the postseason, and he was getting some good checks, he's not the fastest on the skates anymore. And as my good friend Charles Belay said yesterday, the Lightning need to start going all in on players that can skate fast, because we saw it a lot. We saw the Maple Leafs outskate the Lightning in round 1. We saw the Rangers outskate the Lightning in round 3, and then we saw the Colorado Avalanche outskate the Lightning in the Stanley Cup final. So there are a lot of positives in trading somebody like Ryan McDonagh, because he does hold namesake and he does hold name value. I'm gonna say it again. Do not talk to me and try to tell me that, oh, we should trade Steven Stamkos. We hear this every offseason. You don't trade away the heart and soul of your team. You just don't. That's like saying, you know what, John Cooper, you didn't win the Stanley Cup the 3rd year, you're out the door. We're not going to do that. Nobody's going to do that. And that's just like, to me, that's crazy talk, right? We don't talk about getting rid of the core players. We're not getting rid of Stamkos. We're not getting rid of Hedman, not getting rid of Vasilevsky, not ever going to get rid of Cooch, and never going to get rid of John Cooper until John Cooper decides, hey, I'm done. Have a good life. It was a fun run. That's where we are with the Tampa Bay Lightning team. That's also part of the reason why the offseason for the Lightning is kind of boring. If you look at like bad teams across any sport, really, I guess outside of the Magic, who are kind of sitting on their hands right now, but we'll talk about that later. If you look at all teams across like all sports, the offseason is so much more fun when you have a bad team. From a fan's perspective, like, oh wow, who are we going to sign? How are we going to lure people here? What are we going to do? Is next season going to be better? Are these going to be the right pieces, et cetera, et cetera? And to me, it's a hell of a lot of fun. It's not quite as fun in the offseason when you've got a good team, because you already have the pieces there. You just want your team to get back on the ice, the field, the court, whatever. And you just want them to play because you already know that they're good. Offseason moves they're not necessary for these good teams. And that's kind of where the Tampa Bay Lightning are right now. And, back is against the wall with the cap. Julian Brisbois is fantastic in the salary cap gymnastics. I know that some of you, I got a couple comments right now. I know some of you honestly believe that salary cap, it's not real. It's smoke and mirrors. It's a fake number. And that's fine. That's what I mean. I'm a salary cap guy. I love crunching numbers. I love trying to figure out how we can make things fit. Because, I mean, if the salary cap, I would say the salary cap in the NBA might be more smoke and mirrors than anything. I think hockey is pretty cut and dry, as is the NFL. Obviously, baseball, no salary cap. Somebody tell Steve Sternberg that. But there's like, I get the argument to an extent when people want to say that the salary cap is not real. Well, you also have to remember, like, these general managers have a bunch of people around them that do this for a living. General managers aren't just a face. They have to make these types of decisions as well. They're looking at their team. They're looking at their roster. So just because, like, I'll use the New Orleans Saints as an example in the NFL. They were like $79 million in the hole before offseason. They were able to get under the salary cap, not really making too many moves. They were just adding void years, kicking the can down the road, restructuring contracts to free up cap space. And ultimately, they freed up enough space to sign Tyrann Mathieu and Jarvis Landry. That doesn't mean that the salary cap is a smoke and mirror. That just means that somebody who is in the front office is very good at what they do. And we have that in Tampa Bay. So when you hear other fans of other teams going, oh, they're cheating this out, they're not cheating the salary cap, guys. They're doing a good job at their job. That's what they're doing when they get under the salary cap. Let me know what you guys think. I appreciate everybody tuning in to Channelside in the morning live on the Channelside Sports Network. Hopefully you are enjoying the first segment of this show. We're talking a little bit about the Lightning off-season moves. We're going to talk about NBA free agency. Not necessarily much that the Orlando Magic are doing, but we will talk about what's going on kind of around the league and the chatter. And then we've got a lot of Tampa Bay Buccaneers rumors. Julian Edelman again. Mike Tannenbaum talking. And then we're going to look at the roster. And do the Bucs really need to spend in bucks? But is there... I don't know. That's going to be a fun one, talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a little bit later on in the show. So hopefully you guys that are tuned in right now are not here for the Bucs, because that's going to be a little later. But if you are, hopefully you enjoy hearing about all of the other sports. So if we are talking about the NBA, obviously Kevin Durant asked for a trade request yesterday, basically demanding a trade out of Brooklyn, saying, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. Find a trade partner. I'm interested in either Phoenix or I'm interested in Miami. So now we're talking about a Brooklyn Nets team that once had James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving. And Tim Legler went on record, and he said that this has to go down as one of the most epic failures in the history of the league when he's talking about the Brooklyn Nets and their big three. And I can't say that he's entirely incorrect. A lot of people will point to that Lakers team in 2004. Of course, if you don't remember, it was Shaq, Kobe, and then Gary Payton and Karl Malone were on that roster. And they went to the NBA Finals and ultimately lost to the Detroit Pistons. And I can kind of understand, but I'm also not a big fan of it. The reason being is because that Lakers team did not have Gary Payton and Karl Malone in their prime. And arguably Shaq was beyond his prime as well. So we're talking about a team with two superstars, because Shaq was still playing at a high level at that time. Gary Payton was on the downslope. Karl Malone was a shell of who he was at the time. Well, when you look at that Brooklyn Nets team, you go, well, damn. Like, this Brooklyn Nets team really had everybody in their prime. They had top three of probably the top 12 players in the NBA on the roster at the same time, and they couldn't get it done, which really goes to show you exactly what you need to do in the NBA. You need a locker room leader. You need a guy that's going to take charge on the floor. Neither of those three guys are that guy. Kevin Durant wants to go to Phoenix probably because Chris Paul is that guy. Kevin Durant is interested in Miami probably because Udonis Haslem is there. Probably because Jimmy Butler is that guy. And even Bam Adebayo is that guy to an extent down in Miami. So there's different levels and different layers to building a successful NBA team. And if you are looking at somebody like Kevin Durant, his biggest success was in Golden State, where he was not relied on to be a leader, because that's just not his character. That doesn't mean he's a bad player. He's still one of the best players in the entire world. But asking him to be a locker room leader is something that is way out of the ordinary for his character, and he just doesn't. He doesn't, and he cannot do it because that's just not who he is. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with how that is. That's just, I mean, that's the nature of the business for him. That's his character. That's how he plays. Let him be a good basketball player and don't ask him to do any of the rest. And for Christ's sake, stop making fun of the man's hygiene. The I guess what we're gonna see for Kevin Durant is if he does ultimately choose Phoenix, what does that mean for DeAndre Ayton? I guess what we'll see, we will really see if DeAndre Ayton and his relationship with the Phoenix Suns is truly strained based off of the possibility of Kevin Durant going to Phoenix. Because I don't see DeAndre Ayton being the guy that wants to do a sign and trade to help the Suns, especially where they currently are. So like I said, this right here could be the smoke and mirrors that you guys like to talk about when it comes to salary cap. Is this could be, hey, I don't want to be here. I don't like being here. Oh, well, Kevin Durant's here. I think I'll stick around. Because now you're talking about Kevin Durant and Chris Paul. Oh, and Devin Booker. Like that's just insane to me. And I do know that Brooklyn did not like the trade package that Phoenix offered them because it did not include Devin Booker. And they only want Devin Booker when it comes to trading for Kevin Durant. So that makes it a little difficult because you want to keep Devin Booker. That's your franchise player. Doesn't matter if you bring in a Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's not your franchise player when it comes to Phoenix because you know that he's not going to stick around there. Will he stay there for 2-3 seasons? Sure, but that doesn't mean he's going to go there and finish out the remainder of his career as a member of the Phoenix Suns. Whereas Devin Booker just signed a supermax deal, like $248 million. He's staying. He ain't going anywhere. Damian Lillard staying in Portland. Like these guys that are signing these super max deals are staying with their teams. Also, Kevin Durant did take a trip out to Portland. God, I would really like for somebody to give Damian Lillard some help out in Portland. That would be fantastic to see Damian Lillard finally get some help. But I mean, there's all of this talk about where Durant could go, and we've got our own Paulo Banchero took to Twitter yesterday. Not long. I don't know how long this was in the chamber for him. But he posted a picture on his Instagram of he and Kevin Durant both in Magic jerseys. And all it had was the caption that said, "Don't sleep." I get it. Kevin Durant's a great player, and you can't tell me that you don't want Kevin Durant on your team. And I've seen some people say, "Oh, Kevin Durant's got too much drama around him. Kevin Durant, we don't want the baggage that what baggage? The only baggage you really get with a Kevin Durant is you get him mouthing off to haters and trolls on Twitter from time to time. He's got all of this, you're talking to a God speech and all of that stuff when it comes to like his latest quotes that ESPN puts out. But that doesn't mean to me anyway, that doesn't mean that there's baggage and there is drama surrounding Kevin Durant for all of the reasons that I just talked about. Kevin Durant is not a vocal guy. He is not a locker room leader. He is not that fourth quarter rah-rah speech, rally the troops, Ray Lewis kind of player where he's getting everybody hype. That's not him. So how can we all look at Kevin Durant and say, okay, he's not the vocal leader we want, but then we don't want the drama with Kevin Durant because he runs his mouth too much? Those don't add up. We live in a social media world now, and everybody's got a soapbox. I've got a soapbox. I'm sitting on it, but this is what we do. Channelside in the morning on the Channelside Sports Network. It's a soapbox for myself and for everybody else that's getting ready to come aboard the team. Like this is what we do. This is what we are. This is the world that we live in. Everybody's got an opinion. That's why we do this. I love debating sports. I would love for somebody to drop in the comments and tell me why or why not for Kevin Durant coming to the Orlando Magic. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm pretty damn sure it's not going to happen. But I mean, you never know. Kevin Durant doesn't hold any chips when it comes to where his destination is. It all depends on the return for the Brooklyn Nets. Orlando could say, "Look, we were 20 and 62 last season. We're probably not going to be a whole hell of a lot better this season because all we did was sign Mo Bamba for 2 years, $21 million, 2 years, and then we extended Gary Harris for 2 years and $26 million. That's all that we have done in the free agent process thus far. Yeah, we got Paulo Banchero, number 1 overall." But we can't expect this guy to come out of Duke and then all of a sudden we're going for 20 and 62 and now we're adding another 20 wins instead and we're going 40 and 22. That's just or 40 and 42. But that's not going to happen. So they in theory, because Brooklyn has been vocal about, if you're not giving us a star player, we want a crap ton of picks. You could offer a lot. We know Orlando does not like second round picks. We know that they don't like their second round picks, and we know that they are always willing to shop them. They're always willing to sell them. Package up a bunch of second round picks, package up, 3-4 first round picks. What the hell? What do you have to lose at that point? Because now you've got a guy in Kevin Durant who may not be able to vocally lead your team, but that's why you re-signed Gary Harris. You re-signed Gary Harris because he's one of the elder statesmen on the roster. You still want to move Terrence Ross. You can add Terrence Ross as part of that package deal. Brooklyn is about to be very young, so they're going to need some veteran players because Kyrie is going to try and force himself out to LA. KD does not want to be there anymore. And this was your package deal if you are the Brooklyn Nets. This was your package deal, is to have KD and Kyrie together. They signed together, and now apparently they're going to leave together. In the door, out the door, as one solid and solidified unit. That doesn't spell the end. That doesn't mean that teams like Orlando can't find themselves in the mix just because Durant has a preferred location. I would prefer to have 10,000 viewers right now. I don't have it because I don't control it. Kevin Durant can't control where he goes. He can have a wish list, sure. But if you're the Brooklyn Nets front office, do you really want to help out the superstar player that really helped you do nothing? Brooklyn wanted to have like that gritty, kind of like that Detroit go to work mentality when they won the championship from over top of the Lakers in 2004. This is like that was the mentality that they were going for, and then they got finesse players, and they got Kyrie, then they got KD, then they got James Harden. None of those 3 players are tough or gritty. That's not their style of game. Orlando, we're still finding an identity. We still don't know exactly who we want. We don't know what we don't know our true identity as part of the Orlando Magic. It's a fact. It's an unfortunate fact, but it is a fact. I think that you call if a player like Kevin Durant is free, you call. That's what it boils down to for me. If a Kevin Durant is available and wants to be traded, it doesn't matter if you are the worst team in the NBA. You get on the phone and you say, do we have anything that entices you? Do we have anything that we could make work? We know that you've said that Kevin Durant is going to require the largest trade package in NBA history to acquire. We've got a lot of draft picks. We're willing to part with a Jonathan Isaac. He hasn't played for us in 2 years. Good luck with him. We'll give you Terrence Ross. We want to move him anyway. There's all of these things that you can use and possibly make that stand out. Moving on, Tampa Bay Bucs. We got a lot of Bucs news to talk about. This is the Buccaneers roster with their Pro Football Focus grades. Now, of course, you see the stars and the asterisks next to Rashaad White and Luke Odecki. Of course, those are their college football PFF grades, which are insanely high, a 92.2 for Godecki and a 90.8 for Rashaad White. And look, I've said that Rashaad White is going to be an absolute stud in this league, especially given the offense that he's in. He is a fantastic pass catcher. And this is a perfect situation for a running back like him to come in behind. Look at the offensive line. Donovan Smith, 80.5. Obviously, Godecki, we just talked about. Ryan Jensen, 68.3. Shaq Mason. Somehow they lose Alex Chappell. And everything is wrong in the world. And then they swindle Shaq Mason out of New England. And everything that was wrong in the world for the Buccaneers offensive line is suddenly even better than it was prior. Of course, Tristan Wirfs. And here's where we're looking at this, right? Tristan Wirfs is an all-pro. Tristan Wirfs is on pace to be an NFL Hall of Famer already, Pro Football Hall of Famer. He graded at 84.3. Look at where Shaq Mason is at. 86.4. Look at where Donovan Smith is at. Donovan Smith is not far off from that either. Do you remember a couple years ago where Donovan Smith was just trash? I find that one to be a little funny because look at the strides that he made. All he needed was a pocket passing quarterback. That's all he needed. He needed a quarterback that wasn't going to run around, leave the pocket like Jameis Winston did. Because when Jameis Winston was doing it, oh my, you guys wanted to hang Donovan Smith out to dry. Trade him for nothing. Just cut. The amount of Buccaneers fans that wanted Donovan Smith just to be cut is absolutely insane. There were a lot of fans that wanted Donovan Smith just to be gone. And now we're talking about Donovan Smith as one of the better offensive linemen in the NFL. And it's really just amazing at what the Tom Brady effects can have on a player, which is why I'm so high on Rashaad White. I think the Tom Brady effect on Rashaad White is going to be a fantastic thing for him. He is going to look I think he's going to be a better version of James White for Tom Brady in this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. And we all know how solid James White was for the New England Patriots when Brady was there. I'm excited for it. One thing that I was talking about, and I'll run into this right now, is when you look at the Buccaneers schedule, they've got a super hard schedule this year. They've got a very tough schedule. But when you look at the Buccaneers schedule, you can say, okay, they have the Packers, they've got the Chiefs, even the Cowboys, because they've got the Cowboys early in the season. The Cowboys early on in the season are usually way better than they are later on in the season. And that's I don't know why that is. I don't know if that has to do with their training or what it is, but the Cowboys are always way better later in the season than they are early in the season. So you got the Cowboys early in the season, the Packers, the Chiefs. You've got a very rough schedule. Of course, you got the Saints. My biggest trap game for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, and I know some of you are going to laugh at this, and please feel free to, because I know how this is going to play out. My biggest trap game that the Buccaneers must not overlook is traveling to Pittsburgh in week 6. I know I know that some of you are sitting there laughing, and that's fine. But here's the thing: is Mitchell Trubisky. We can say that Mitchell Trubisky is trash, and a lot of people would agree with you. But I'm not. I don't think that Mitchell Trubisky is a terrible quarterback. The reason why I say that is because we saw Allen Robinson go from a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver to basically being a non-factor and also looking like trash, right? And that was the scheme and that was the system with the Chicago Bears. Matt Nagy completely made that offensive team. He made them totally anemic on offense. And that's really what I think was the biggest downfall when it comes to Mitchell Trubisky was Matt Nagy just didn't know how to manage that team. So if we're looking at trap games, this is it right here. The only questions that the Buccaneers truly have on this roster as of right now, besides the rumors and things that we're going to get into in a minute, the only question marks they have is on their defensive line because Ndamukong Suh is gone and Jason Pierre-Paul is gone. Those are the only questions that this team has. Pittsburgh happens to have a guy named Najee Harris who is an absolute bulldozer coming out of the backfield. He doesn't fumble the ball. I think he had one fumble at the very end of the season, or maybe it might have even been in the wild card game. But Najee Harris does not fumble the ball. He hangs on to the ball very well. He is a power back. And if you've got questions on your defensive line, this is not a running back that you want to see. I'm not worried about, Deontay Johnson. I'm sure he'll get his, but I'm not worried about anything else. I'm simply stating that overlooking the Steelers because you think Mitchell Trubisky is not going to be at least a serviceable quarterback that has the power to beat a team. Think about when Ryan Fitzpatrick was here. We all loved Fitzmagic, right? You would have Ryan Fitzpatrick games where you'd go, oh my God, he torched them for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. And then you would have those games where you go, he threw 100 yards and 5 picks. You're not going to get that with Mitchell Trubisky. You're going to get a steady performance from him, and especially with a head coach like Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin knows what he's doing when it comes to managing his roster. This may be something that's out of the ordinary for him now because he's had Ben Roethlisberger his entire coaching career. But, I mean, Mitchell Trubisky is going to be a serviceable quarterback, and I don't want Bucs fans. I don't want us to overlook the importance of this game simply because we have the Packers and the Chiefs. Because those are the games that you expect to be close. Trap games are the games where you're saying we're going to beat this team absolutely no matter what. Those are the games where it's dangerous. Do you think Buffalo planned on tying and having a field goal contest with the Jacksonville Jaguars last year? They didn't. But it was a trap game. That's the beauty of the of NFL is it's honestly and literally any given Sunday when it comes to the vast majority of these football games. And I think that, to me, like I said, that's got to be one of the most fun things when you are watching NFL football. There's a lot of rumors. I guess we'll take it from the top, where yesterday Mike Tannenbaum was on Get Up, and he says there's a 100% chance. 100% is that's as sure can get. A 100% chance that Rob Gronkowski makes his return to the Buccaneers this season. And we all kind of thought that as well. Mike Tannenbaum said that he really believes that Gronk is just trying to skip training camp. Some of his talking points, and I do totally agree with a lot of the reasoning behind his assurance at 100% is And he said, when Tom Brady says go, Gronk says yes. How high and how fast, sir? And he's not entirely wrong. I mean, Brady got him to come out of retirement once and come down to Tampa Bay. Why can't he get him to do it again? And then he makes a very valid and solid point where he says, you don't need Rob Gronkowski for every game. You need him for crucial moments. You need him for red zone targets later in the season. You need him for playoff moments, because that's what you rely on Rob Gronkowski for. You don't need an 80 reception Rob Gronkowski. You need 20 solid Rob Gronkowski receptions with half. We'll go with half being touchdowns. That's what you want out of Rob Gronkowski. You don't need, the best, arguably the best tight end in NFL history. That's not the guy that you need when it comes down to having Gronk on your roster. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports says that Tom Brady is going to lure Odell Beckham Jr. to the Buccaneers by November. Now, obviously, this is speculation as well. And I know we talked about this earlier in the week. I love the idea of bringing Odell Beckham Jr. to Tampa. Do I love it as much as Saquon Barkley? I don't know. I'll have to think about that. But I love the idea of Odell Beckham coming and playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because he is just as good as Antonio Brown was. And oh, by the way, he's a little less crazy than Antonio Brown is too. I'm a huge fan of this potential move. Now, that all depends on if the knee is healthy, right? He's recovering from a torn ACL in the Super Bowl. So if Odell Beckham is healthy and he's still free come, later in the season, even I would even say as early as like mid-October. I know that's still, just outside the first quarter of the season, but why not bring him in? Why would you not want to have somebody like Odell Beckham on your roster? We know that the Bucs are already a Super Bowl contender, but why can't we want more, right? Why can't we want more on our team? Why can't we want more star athletes, and especially in our skill positions? Julian Edelman was on I Am Athlete yesterday. And of course, they asked him about the Buccaneers, and of course, he sparked his rumor mill about a possible return yet again, which just leads me, this is the question right here, and I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. So let me know: do the Bucs need to spend money? Should they spend money? They've got cap space, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to spend that cap space. They don't have to spend that money. And if they were to spend the money, if you had the option between Odell and Julian Edelman, who would you rather spend the money on? And then we could take that even one step further. And let's just say Julian Edelman is tipping the scales a little bit, right? How would he even fit the team? He hasn't played in 2 years. Would you rather take a Julian Edelman because of the chemistry he has with Tom Brady? Or would you rather look at an active free agent, a la Odell Beckham Jr., even Julio Jones to an extent? The only reason I would be on the Julio Jones bandwagon is because I'd like to see him chase a ring before he retires, because I don't think he has much time left. And I think he deserves a shot at a fair shot at being a contender, because I never believed in that Atlanta Falcons team that made that Super Bowl push. I never believed that team was actually going to win the Super Bowl. Even when they were up 28-3, something told me, and I'm not going to say I'm a prophet, but something told me that Atlanta Falcons team was not going to win the Super Bowl that year. Lo and behold, they didn't win the Super Bowl that year, and Tom Brady still trolls them with 28-3 from time to time in his Instagram stories. So with Julian Edelman, if and of course this is a big if, and the only reason we're talking about this is because he once again planted the seeds and kind of watered them for us. Is Julian Edelman in a better position than somebody, like a Brashad Perryman, a Russell Gage, Scotty Miller? Like, where would, if you sign Julian Edelman, you don't sign somebody with that name to be wide receiver 4. So you're already talking about just like completely throwing up the roster and tearing it up and tearing it down. And here's, we know Chris Godwin's going to be out for an uncertain amount of games this season as he recovers from his own knee injury. Where do you sign somebody like, Julian Edelman, or Odell's not going to be able to play either. So he's out of the question at this point. But do you sign somebody like a Julian Edelman and just plug him in early in the season, see what happens, and then try to reevaluate things once Chris Godwin comes back, and then try to figure out the depth order and from there? Or do you just stick with what's working and then try to shore up that defensive line, because that's the only true question mark that you have? Because the more I think about it, I was very vocal about signing a veteran tight end, and I would still be okay signing a veteran tight end like a Jimmy Graham or not Antonio Gates, he's retired. Like Jimmy Graham or um Eric Ebron. I think Eric Ebron has a lot of upside still left in his career. He's young. He just got injured and kind of fell out of rotation. But I think Eric Ebron is a good option if we're going to sign a tight end. But I don't think we necessarily need a tight end. Cade Otton's ankle surgery, he's healing up pretty well from it. So if he's ready to go and you can rotate Cameron Brate, because Cameron Brate is not used to being TE1. He's not. He's never been that. He's always split time. So do you want to overwhelm Cameron Brate to where he is now solely the tight end 1 and he's not splitting time with anybody because the tight end number 2, Cade Otton, is injured and trying to work his way back from an ankle injury? Or do you say, hey, Cam Brate, we're gonna sign Eric Ebron, we're gonna sign a Kyle Rudolph, we're gonna sign somebody else that is going to help you, going to split time with you. Maybe you see an uptick. I think Cameron Brate's, I think his biggest snap percentage was 67%. Maybe he gets up to 70%, 75%, but you still need to have some of those plays off, especially if you're a tight end, because your tight ends they want you to run routes and block. Tight end is arguably one of the harder positions to play because you need to kind of be a jack of all trades. And it's very seldom that you've got, a master at all of them, like you do with a Rob Gronkowski or, a Tony Gonzalez or an Antonio Gates. So if you lean too heavily on Cameron Brate, I just don't want that to backfire where we go, yeah, everybody's okay. We're fine with Cameron Brate. However, 6-7 weeks into the season, we're sitting there scratching our heads going, crap, we're not all right with Cameron Brate. Cade Otton's ankle's not, he's not fully ready. Now we're talking about Chris Godwin is out. Our hopeful tight end to help Cameron Brate, he's still out. And now we're kind of struggling to figure out where we're going to go with this. I know we got Tom Brady. I know we've got Byron Leftwich. Bruce Arians is obviously still there, even though he's not on the sideline. And Todd Bowles is a very capable coach, but these are things that you need to look at and things that we should definitely be considering when we're looking forward, at least to this season, because I know we're not looking forward to 2023. Otherwise, I still think that we would have made a move to bring in Baker Mayfield when his trade value was essentially in the toilet. And I saw a poll, SB Nation had this out, that it was 68% And that it didn't give me an exact number, but I do know SB Nation's got over 1 million followers. So let's just say, even 10,000 people participated in this. 68% of people want to see Kyle Trask get more playing time this season, which I think is odd considering the fact that you do have Tom Brady. And then I also question and go, okay, well, how many of those 68%, how many of those people are Gator fans? How many of the 68% just want him to play because they want to see the Florida Gators represented on the NFL field in the quarterback role? Because that's something that we haven't really seen since Tim Tebow was there. Whether you say he was a success or not is completely up to you. I consider his career not to be successful because he was forced into a situation when he wasn't ready, a la Kyle Trask. I don't think that Kyle Trask is ready to have more playing time in the NFL currently. There's a reason why Christensen said that he would not be competing for a backup role. This is the quarterback's coach, man. If the quarterback's coach is saying he doesn't think that this guy is ready, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that he knows a hell of a lot more about quarterback coaching than I do and than you do. This is what he does for a living, and he does it pretty well. He does it on one of the most prolific teams in the NFL, in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if Christensen says that this guy's not ready, I'm going to take his word for it. He sees him every single day in film sessions, in training camps, in team meetings. He sees this guy every single day. And if for some reason he says he is not ready, he's not ready. We have to take him at his word. Blaine Gabbert is what it's whatever. I don't see Blaine Gabbert being the starting quarterback for not just the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but for any team again. Blaine Gabbert is kind of solidified himself as a backup for the remainder of his career, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's been plenty of players that have made great livings and have made a great name for themselves as being a solid backup quarterback. Solid veteran. He arguably would be the one that would teach Kyle Trask more so than Tom Brady. Tom Brady can dissect film with these guys. Tom Brady can, go over schemes and pre-snap routines and how to read defenses the way that he does. But at the end of the day, Tom Brady is focused on winning football games. He's focused on bringing a Lombardi trophy back to Tampa Bay and having another boat parade in the Bay. That's what Tom Brady's ultimate focus is. His ultimate focus isn't, I really got to coddle Kyle Trask and make sure that Kyle Trask is ready to take over when I leave. And, I I said this early in the week as well. I strongly believe that the Glazers, Jason Light, Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles, I strongly believe that all of these guys know what Tom Brady's plans are after this season. And that could possibly be a reason why there was no move made, regardless of Tom Brady coming back from retirement. This front office is tight-lipped for better and for worse, right? Like it's as a journalist and as a broadcaster, I wish that they were a little less tight-lipped because then it's just more fun to speculate. But at the same time, they drop so many subtle hints to us. They'll drop so many subtleties to where we're watching them and go, yeah, well, we'll leave the light on for Tom Brady. I touched on this before. I actually wrote an article for this when I was with USA Today of Bruce Arians kind of speaking in tongues when it comes to things, like at the combine before they brought in Tom Brady, where Bruce Arians would go, oh, We know what we're going to do at quarterback, but Jameis Winston doesn't know. What does that mean? Like, you could have taken that either which way. You could have said, okay, you know what? They're going to sign Jameis Winston to a 2-year deal. They're going to sign Jameis Winston to a 1-year prove it deal. No matter how you felt about the interceptions from Jameis Winston, the dude still had 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. You can clean up the interceptions. And I think Jameis Winston will clean up the interceptions. He looked good through the first week of the first quarter of last season until he went down with the knee injury. But I strongly think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers know exactly what they're going to do, and they know what Tom Brady is going to do after 2023, after 2022, heading into 2023, which is why they have not opted to make any moves for any of the quarterbacks, because once again, we're looking at the top prospects in college football heading into this season are Alabama and Ohio State quarterbacks, and they don't always pan out. The verdict is still out on Tua Tagovailoa down in Miami. I think he played well enough. I know Miami fans are very, very torn on Tua. I guess this is going to be his sure test because now he's got 2 wide receiver ones in Miami. Maybe now we can look and go, okay, not all Alabama quarterbacks are kind of, they're not all bummy anymore. Some of them work out, some of them pan out. But I think that they do. I really think that Tampa Bay knows exactly what Tom Brady is going to do and what he wants to do. There was no reason to sit idle when you had this cap space and you knew that you weren't going to re-sign Ndamukong Suh. You knew that you were not going to re-sign Jason Pierre-Paul. And and especially now Bruce Arians, when he opened up and he talked about why he stepped down from coaching. He stepped down from coaching, yes, because of Tom Brady, but not the reasons why everybody wanted to believe. Not the made up reasons by some of these clickbait websites. He stepped aside because he was comfortable leaving Todd Bowles with Tom Brady. He was going to step aside regardless. Like, that was already a thought in his mind, but he was not comfortable leaving the Buccaneers and leaving Todd Bowles with Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask. And that is telling. That says a hell of a lot about where this team views their quarterback situation beyond Tom Brady. And that really, you've got money. Make a move. Deshaun Watson is probably just suspended for the entire season, which now makes Baker Mayfield's trade value a little bit higher. I don't think he's going to play for Cleveland this year anyway. And I don't think that there's any other quarterback that's worth trading for that could be available. I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Jimmy Garoppolo coming to Tampa Bay is exactly what Jimmy Garoppolo was in San Francisco. Serviceable quarterback on a fantastic team who can lead you to NFC championship games and lead you to a Super Bowl berth. I think that is the Buccaneers roster is perfect for somebody like a Jimmy Garoppolo. I think it's perfect for somebody like a Baker Mayfield. Make some phone calls and spend some money. If you're going to spend the money, spend it wisely. That's all I'm saying. Do we need a Julian Edelman? I think that spending money on bringing in somebody like a Julian Edelman it's not worth it. You can spend money and bring in Odell Beckham. He knew that he was not going to be the number 1 target when he went to Los Angeles, but he knew that he was going to be competing for a Super Bowl, and he enjoyed his time there. And this was a very different Odell Beckham Jr. than we saw in Cleveland and at the end of his run with the New York Giants. If you're going to bring Odell Beckham in, you don't think that the militaristic style that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have is going to be able to keep Odell Beckham in check? Like, you're crazy. That there's no possible way that Odell Beckham Jr. doesn't come in and even tighten up more so than he was in Los Angeles, because that's just the style of this organization in Tampa Bay is, hey, we don't tolerate any of the nonsense. You come in, you go to work. You clock out, you go home, and that's that. We don't tolerate Antonio Brown style tactics on the sidelines. We don't tolerate any of that. So you can't say Odell has a lot of baggage with him. I would say make a push for Odell. I like Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports' idea of Tom Brady calling up Odell, who is they're close friends. Odell is close with Giselle as well. Call him up in November. Say, hey, Chris Godwin's healthy. Mike Evans is healthy. I'm healthy. Lenny's healthy. What do you say? And then what does that roster look like come November, though? Because if we are so certain that Tom Brady is going to call up Odell, and we're so certain that Rob Gronkowski is going to come back, do you mean to tell me that we're going to have a roster with Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, Odell Beckham Jr., Leonard Fournette? Like, to me, that's better than the roster with Antonio Brown. Antonio still showed that he could play at a high level, but I always questioned his motivation. I always questioned whether he was fully into it or he just wanted to play because he liked the money. After watching Odell kind of revitalize himself, go through waivers where nobody claimed him, and then sign with the Los Angeles Rams on a smaller contract, and then say that I'm willing to come back on a smaller contract yet with the Los Angeles Rams to kind of run it back, that really showed me the maturity level of Odell Beckham and wanting to play for a winner. Because I think a lot of his mindset was, people love me for the catch against Dallas, and that's kind of it. People talk about Odell Beckham Jr. as a fantastic wide receiver solely based off of that catch on Sunday Night Football against Dallas. Arguably one of the greatest catches we've ever seen, and arguably the greatest catch of our generation for sure. But that's really what his career had been reduced down to because of off-field shenanigans. And I think that, the birth of his child, I think that he has definitely turned over a new leaf. And I think that he doesn't need to be coddled nearly as much as an Antonio Brown needed to be coddled. I think the only reason why Odell is still a free agent right now is because of the knee injury. Let it heal, give him a call, and who knows. By the way, happy Bobby Bonilla Day, huh? Totally forgot about that. July 1st until, 2035? If you're not familiar with Bobby Bonilla Day, this is one of the greatest days in all of sports. This is the day where you say, I want Bobby Bonilla. I need his agent to work any deal. I'm buying a new car. I need Bobby Bonilla's agent because he hasn't played a day since 1999. I know that some of you that listen to this show were not born in 1999, let alone me being 13, but I digress. Bobby Bonilla gets paid $1 million every July 1st from the New York Mets until 2035. And he has not played a day since July in 1999. Like, how fantastic. What a deal, man. Like, we talk about this every baseball fans and just sports fans in general. We all kind of talk about this all the time. But damn, man, how great is that? Not if you're the Mets. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if you're the Mets because there's no salary cap in baseball, but imagine if you implemented a salary cap in baseball and you have to account for Bobby Bonilla on your salary cap every single year for the next 13 years because you signed some insane deal to bring him to the New York Mets back in 1999 and said that we'll pay you $1 million and we'll just talk about kicking the can down the road. We talk about the Buccaneers restructuring contracts and saying, okay, well, 2023 salary cap, not looking so good because they added void years. 2025, not looking so good. They added a lot of void years. Bobby Bonilla, 1999 to 2035 is nearly 40 years. Nearly 40 years you kicked that can down the road to sign this guy. Like, just absolutely fantastic. What a phenomenal move by his agent, man. That's still envious. Still absolutely envious. Envious. I can't believe it. But I guess we'll talk about it next July when we're doing this in a studio with much, much bigger aspirations for Channelside Sports. That's going to do it for us today on this Friday, July 1st edition of Channelside in the morning, live on the Channelside Sports Network. I thank everybody that tuned in. If you are new to tuning in, I appreciate it. Thank you for devoting any amount of time to the movement that we are creating with Channelside. We've got some exciting stuff coming up as far as interviews and athletes, and we've Tampa Bay iconic figures coming through. Join the movement, tag a friend, tag some family, and yeah, lots of big things coming up for us in the future with Channelside Sports. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you again on July 4th on Monday. I'll be here chopping it up, talking some sports. Maybe we've got some more exciting news in the Tampa Bay Lightning office, and we'll see what happens. Everybody have a great